Good evening, Rekha. Please introduce yourself to the BIS Connect parents.
So formal, Bindu. Thank you for doing this. My name is Rekha Raghunathan. I'm a grade 9 and 11 parent. We've been at BIS since 2019. And until Feb of this year, my interaction with school was just the PTMs and whatever events took place. But I've been in the thick of it since Feb. And yeah, madly, I've decided to throw my name into the election hat for the AGM as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Tell us a bit about your childhood.
My childhood. Um, I grew up in Madras. I love Tamil. I'm a CSK fan. I went to school and college there. I played tennis for most of my life. I still play. I played state, national level, university, all of that. I have an undergrad in corporate law, and then I went to the US for my master's. I have an MBA in financial analytics. I lived there for about 10, 11 years. I've been back in India for a long time now. Um, yeah, I went from a career in corporate to doing a lot of different types of work in the development sector. Do you want me to go into those details, or
Whatever
I
you
want
want.
to take?
This is your show.
Yeah, it's okay. Maybe in some other context I can talk about that later. Thanks.
Cool. You didn't mention what you did professionally, but if you would want to go into more details and what inspired you to pursue your current profession.
Yeah, so in the US, it was a very tried and tested path. I After an MBA, I started working with a couple of banks. Um, I used to build models for traders, and then I did product training and sales. But then when I came back to India, I was quite bored of it. I didn't want to engage with that. I'd taken a small break when the kids were born. So then I've always been very interested in writing and editing. So I started doing a lot of freelance work in that space. And I started working across a range of sectors: transport, water, sanitation, urban planning, and so on. And then I ended up joining this think tank in Bangalore called the Indian Institute for Human Settlements. And I helped set up what is called the Word Lab, which is basically the editorial and publications function. So there's writing, there's research, there's teaching. And I also held a strong leadership role in building out the institution's public engagement. So I co-founded a writings festival called City Scripts. Um, I built a lot of public engagement around the library that the institution has. And so libraries, archives, taking research to the public using art and culture, these are some of my interests and some of the things that I did for the last 10 years or so. That's been a very different journey from what I started off with. And what inspires me to do this is just that I feel art and culture are a really good way to reach out to a larger group of people. There's so much research happens, so much in practice, so much happens on the ground, but not many people know about it. And using art and culture, literature, film, all of that, to take these messages out, I feel has a very great impact. And I'm very keen to work with children and young adults. So that's why this sort of career switch.
Wow, that's quite a spectrum of things that you've done. Quite interesting. What drives you through the tough times?
Through the tough times, I think having had exposure to sports from a very young age, I think really builds, or it has built for me a lot of physical and mental bandwidth. So there's a lot that I think, deal with without getting too, I don't know, maybe too caught up. And I think sport also teaches, determination. There's no way that one can be an athlete and not know failure. So that's a very tough time especially when you're young, because you're going to lose and you're going to have to bounce back, even between points. I used to play tennis. So from one point to the next, if you're going to sort of dwell on what just happened, obviously you're going to find it very difficult to get through that game. So that thing of quickly being agile, thinking ahead, just moving ahead and not staying too long in that moment of, I don't know, failure, if you want to call it, I think has really helped me navigate tough times in my personal and professional life.
Interesting. Because sports, playing any kind of sport is obviously a big builder of character. So, from moving on from sports, if we move into music, the question I'd like to ask you is if moods choose music, what moods drive your music choice?
That's an interesting one. I actually I learned to sing Carnatic music for a long time. I think I learned it for some maybe 8, 9 years. And I never really, I think I was always apparently I was good at it, but I don't think I really enjoyed it because my music teacher used to ask me to wear a pavade and a shirt. That's a skirt and the blouse, which I absolutely hated. But I think that whatever all those years of engaging with Carnatic music has really given me a very strong foundation to engage with different types of music. So my playlists on Spotify are pretty all over the place. Of course, I have the kids, rap or hip hop or whatever nonsense. But I personally, I like classic rock a lot. Um, I love Ilayaraja music. It's like a go-to. And then, of course, I have a lot of, because I train 3, 4 days a week, I have a lot of sort of upbeat music for when I'm not fully awake at 5 in the morning, but I have to go for my class. So my music ranges across those things. And I have like special playlists for when it's monsoon time. And, you're feeling a little bit like, oh, it'd be nice to just like curl up in bed with a book. I have a separate playlist for that. And thankfully, we have monsoons in Bangalore, which are fairly steady.
That's interesting. I've never heard of anyone with a monsoon playlist. That's a new one
Yeah.
to put into, a playlist. What do you think is unique about the cultural fabric of Bangalore?
Of Bangalore. Hmm. Actually, I don't know. I mean, I've lived here now since what, 2010? So it's a fair bit of time. And I've lived in India, I've only lived in Madras, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. Other than that, I've only lived in the US in a couple of cities. I've never felt as accepted in any other place. I don't know how else to explain that. I really enjoyed living in Hyderabad, but it was very hard to fit into the place itself because you needed to know the language. If you didn't speak Telugu, you couldn't, do anything. Everybody thinks Hyderabad people speak Hindi and you can just get by, but it's not like that. It's very, very difficult if you don't speak Telugu. But somehow when I came to Bangalore, I felt very accepted because I'm very fluent in Tamil. I'm really horrible in Hindi. I mean, I grew up in Madras, so no surprises there. Um, but the place that I lived in, it was sort of a melting pot of people from different parts of India, and I feel like that really helped. All of us were kind of outsiders, but at the same time, the city made us feel welcome, and I think that that's quite unique to Bangalore because I can say that despite being from Madras and Madras being my favorite city, Madras is not one of those places where people feel welcome for maybe the similar reasons that you need to know Tamil or something like that. So Bangalore for me has really been a very accepting place. I find the civil society to be very active. There's a lot of development sector spaces. There's a lot of education institutions, cultural institutions, all of that. I think it's been so welcoming and just so nice. And I think that that's very unique to Bangalore. The only peeve I have is that unfortunately it doesn't have a beach. And having grown up in Madras, for me, like the beach is everything. So that's one thing I sorely miss. Of course, I like the parks, but it's not the beach.
So I'm sorry we couldn't provide you with a beach, but I'm glad that you find Bangalore welcoming. If you could meet a historical figure and have a conversation, who would it be and why?
There are so many people, and for because I have like such a random, wide-ranging set of interests, it's so hard to pick. Like I don't know. I'm wondering whether I should pick, I don't know, a tennis player or somebody. But I guess right off the top of my head, just because I was doing some sketching. I don't know if you've heard of Ruth Ginsburg. She was a Supreme Court advocate in the US. I've It's not like I've followed her career or something like that, but I think towards the time that she got appointed onto the Supreme Court is when I started to read about her, and her being so active for women's rights was really something else. I feel like I would like to just have a chat with her just to see how she got there, because she grew up at a time where it was quite women did not have access to so many things at the time that she came through the system. So I think it's really quite inspiring to be able to have a conversation with someone like her. Do you want me to tell you a quote? I actually have something that I'd sketched of her. You can see it. That, that's
Wow, that's interesting.
yeah.
Ruth Ginsburg, yes. Yeah, please tell us.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a really small quote, but it's really important. It says, she said, women will have achieved true equality when men share with them the responsibility of bringing up the next generation. And she was really that kind of person, not somebody who just like putting men down, but raising the level at which everybody must operate and how society must function. So for me, she was a very important, very inspiring person. So I would love to meet her.
Interesting choice.
Yeah.
The next question is, what have you learned from success and failure?
Mm, I think I mentioned it a little bit when we were talking earlier about, this whole mental toughness, resilience, and all of that. But, success and failure, I think in the context of sport is very black and white. You either win or lose, and winning is success, losing is failure, and that's how it goes. But in life, it's not like that, no, because I feel both success and failure, these are yardsticks created by, I don't know if it's society, but for me they go hand in hand in some ways. If you're I guess neither is really permanent, and for me that's one kind of big lesson. And I think I had posted it on one of these WhatsApp groups also, one of our school WhatsApp groups. Rudyard Kipling wrote about this, right? He said if you can look at triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, that's something that's etched at Wimbledon Centre Court. And it's been a very inspiring thing for me as an athlete and as a person. So I don't give, I guess, too much importance to either. And I feel I've raised my kids to also not be too wowed by success, but also not too beat up by failure, because one, they kind of go hand in hand. I don't know if I answered your question. I feel I went a bit of on a tangent on that.
No, I, no,
Sorry.
I think that was a good answer because that kind of then brings equilibrium, in into a person's life. So that's quite an
Yeah.
interesting answer. The next thing want you to respond to is, what about BIS is inspirational?
Hmm. I think I should ask my kids, because honestly, after all this began, I wanted to leave the school, but my kids were absolutely steadfast that they have to graduate here. What I've seen in these 4 years is the teachers are just phenomenal. Uh, they just know all the kids so well. You go to the PTM, and we've been in a couple of schools prior to this in Bangalore and outside because we've moved around. And I've never seen this kind of a connect that the teachers and the children have. And I think that's been really special. Um, and despite everything that's happened now since Feb, the kids have really been largely unaffected by that. And I think that speaks volumes for how the teachers have just held it together and how much commitment they have really to the kids. So if there's anything, it's really that. And as a parent governed school, it would be nice to say that the parents were the reason we are here. I don't think we're in that spot right now, but I really hope that, in the next couple of years, I have 3 more years left in the school. My younger one is in the ninth. I hope by the time I leave, I don't know if I get a chance to get elected. I would really like to work towards building that social fabric, bringing the parent community together. I don't know, creating more opportunities for parents, board, teachers, all of these different bodies that are meant to govern the school, to really come together and just be a little bit more a community. We have that tagline, caring, connected community, but I don't know how much of a community we are. I don't feel people really know each other that well. And that could be one of the reasons that has led to this last 3 months. Just so much mistrust and everything. So, yeah, what would be special? What is currently special is the teachers and I think the bond they have with the kids. But what would be special is if we are able to actually bridge this, come come out on top after all of this has happened.
Agreed. I think the teachers truly are special, and let's hope that with all you guys, when you get elected, that we actually manage to go back to being that caring, connected community.
Yeah.
What life-changing event in the past has shaped you today?
Mm. So, I mean, this is a personal event. I went through a pretty difficult divorce when the children were much younger, more than 10 years ago. And yeah, I guess I don't think any divorce is easy, but I kind of sort of walked out when I didn't really have a full time job. And I really had to I had to work pretty hard to just bring things together, hold the ship steady, that sort of a thing. And I feel like that's shaped me in so many ways. It allowed me to understand maybe how deep I can dig if I need to. And it has also shown me that I can do those things without being negative. It's very easy when people split up to say things about the other person. I feel you have to hold yourself to higher standards, and I feel that I've done that, and I feel my kids are better off because of it. There's no animosity. They're in touch with their dad. We have a decent relationship. So I feel that that was a tough situation that I had to deal with, which has, I think it's given us all in the family lifelong lessons.
That's quite remarkable that to be able to be on good terms after having gone through something that difficult. That's quite remarkable.
Yeah, it's not easy, but yes,
Yeah,
it can be done.
that's fantastic. Um, the next question is, what is the one thing about you that most people don't know, but you wish they did?
I wish they knew I was a terrible dancer. I often forget this when I go to parties and everyone's like, hey, come to the dance floor. And then I go and then they're like, oh my God, I wish we had known this before. But I mean, yeah. What is the one thing? I think everybody, I mean, haven't had a very like exciting life or whatever, but I don't know, would it be interesting if I told you I've met a whole bunch of tennis players? I've met Goran Ivanisevic. He is so cute. Uh, I've seen Federer, I've seen Sampras, Rafa Nadal, Djokovic, all of them. And I've seen a bunch of players from the women's side as well. Steffi Graf, Kim Clijsters, Sania Mirza, Venus Williams. Is that good?
That sounds very good. Something that, especially for a tennis player, that must have been awesome to be able to meet all these.
It was. I mean, I ended up going to Wimbledon a few years ago. A bunch of friends and I went when we turned 40. So that was really a very, very special visit. And I got to see this range of people there. So it was very cool.
Outstanding. What are your thoughts on the concept of women seeking permission, whether in personal or professional contexts? Please explain.
Hmm. Did you see my eyebrows raise as you read that question? No, I absolutely disagree with women having to seek permission to do anything. I think it's important that as children, as young adults, both, boys and girls or what it's not even about permission, but it's about healthy relationship where you're able to communicate to your parents or your guardians where you're going, what you're doing, that sort of a thing. But as an adult, I believe that, um, you know, people take decisions hopefully in an informed manner. And if somebody needs guidance, they will come to you. But I don't believe at all that anyone should ask anyone else for permission, irrespective of their gender. And certainly not women, because that's how society is set up like that. Women have to ask for everything. I absolutely don't believe in that. And I think that that is a concept that I hope all of our children will push through and and hopefully we'll see lesser and lesser of it in the world.
I couldn't agree more because perhaps the education that our kids are getting will probably put girls on a much more equal footing going forward.
Yeah, I hope so.
What is the best piece of advice that you have ever received, and how has it influenced you?
Um, Best piece of advice. I think I'm going to sort of go back to my parents actually. See, my parents were really quite relaxed about my education, about my tennis, all of it. They never really put any pressure on me. And one of the things that they said is, look, you need to get through, like, don't flunk, give it your best, and we'll deal with whatever happens. And I feel like I've basically lived my life on those principles. I don't know if that's advice, but yeah, whatever it is. I raise my kids like that. You don't have control over outcomes; you have control over effort, and that's been a very strong bit of advice which has served me well. I think all through pretty much.
That's great advice, actually. That if we could all just focus on the effort and not the outcome, that's really good advice. What is your favorite way to unwind or relax after a long day?
Um, Depends on, well, if it's a Friday or a Saturday, I would like to have a glass of wine or some gin or something like that. I like to sketch. It's something that I got into actually during COVID or just a little bit before that, before the lockdown and all that. So it's something that I find very calming. And I didn't really grow up doing a whole lot of art, but I love sketching. I love reading. I write a lot. I have multiple notebooks, um, different things for different notebooks for different things. Um, I also have a blog. So that's generally how I wind down. I don't really watch much TV, although once in a way I'll go sit with the kids and they always laugh saying, "Oh, she's going to watch the opening scene and then wake up at the end credits." So that's how I wind down.
So you're a finance person who sketches and writes. That's that's quite a
I think my finance is very distant and hazy right now. I barely can manage my own.
that's quite an unusual combination right there. Um, can you describe a challenging obstacle you faced and how you had to overcome it?
Challenging obstacle. Okay, I already told you about a personal one, so I'll tell you about a professional one. I went through a situation at work where there was someone in the team who did not like me, who filed a complaint. And you know how, I don't know how, if workplace harassment is very different from sexual harassment complaints, where both parties are stopped from entering the office until the case is resolved. Workplace harassment isn't like that. Everybody comes to work, except only the person who filed the complaint knows that they filed a complaint. So it was business as usual, everything was going on. But in the background, HR had to do a whole lot of investigation, um, talk to every single person in the company who reported to me. And until they produced the report that I was clear, I didn't even know all of this was going on. So for me, like when I found out about it, and it was fine, like there was no issue at all because unfortunately, this, the complaint, the person who raised the complaint was unfortunately asked to leave. But I think it was a massive hit for me. I just could not understand why someone would do something like that when they could have just come up to me and had a conversation about it. So it led to a lot of, I think, introspection. I signed up for some leadership coaching because sometimes there's a big difference between what you intend to communicate and what is actually received by the other person. Some of it is them, but a lot of it could be you. So I feel like that really allowed me to examine just how I work, my ways of speaking, how do I manage my responsibilities, how do I handle authority, all of those things. So I feel like that was a very tough situation at the time, and I feel like I've really come out just a much better person after having gone through all of that coaching and everything. And a lot of those things applied not just in a workplace, but also in the home, especially when you have younger kids and all that.
That's uh, that's quite remarkable that your response to a situation like that was actually to do that much of introspection enough to go and get a course. I think that is quite remarkable because it would have been easy to just go through the experience and walk away from it. So that's quite an interesting response that you had there. The next question is there a particular book or movie that had a significant impact on your life?
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Okay, is there a particular book or movie that had a significant impact on your life?
You know what? There's actually way too many books. So why don't I instead talk about a movie because I haven't watched that many movies. Uh, Kung Fu Panda. It's one of my absolute favorite movies. It's such a simple story on the surface of it, but so meaningful. By the time you get to the end of the film, there's just something about Poe's character that it really speaks to me. And I think maybe there's a little bit of Poe in all of us. We always think like, are we good enough? Should we be doing this? Maybe we're not good for this. Maybe we should be doing something different. But then there's always an element of uncertainty in some ways. Um, and just to see Poe navigate that whole journey, and of course with Jack Black's amazing sense of humor and all of that, I feel like I don't take myself too seriously sometimes. And I think that's a very good thing. I constantly refer back to Poe and I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's it. What does Poe want to do? Eat dumplings and just chill out. And when he needs to put in the effort, he'll put in the effort. And I feel like that's been a very, really inspiring movie for me. Yeah.
It is again another varied choice to pick a kids a kids movie of all things. Um, but I like the way you drew parallels and looked at the layers of meaning underneath. Like you said, a simplistic movie on the surface. The
Yeah.
next question is: what are your goals or aspirations for the future, both professionally as well as personally?
Hmm. I think my big interest really is in building communities, and I know that sounds very grand, but there are three areas of focus that I've been engaged with for some time. One is mental health, the other one is sports, and the other one is street doggies. And connects all of them is children and young adults. So my interest is in exploring how can we bring these three things. I think these three are very important for me personally, and I feel like there's a great bearing that each of these things have on children and when they're exposed to it. So I'm still actually fleshing out the details, but I'm going to be doing some. I'm taking a little bit of time off to do some research and maybe a little bit of study into the mental health space, as far as mental health being public health, and then how do you sort of bring it down to the scope of children. But sports for me, because I know how much it has helped me in my life. It's something that I really want to. I want to get more kids to play sports, and not kids like our kids, because a lot of us who go to schools like these can afford all of these things. But there are lots of kids who can't. And my interest is in finding a way to get sports to be more accessible. And dogs, I feel um, I've grown up, I didn't have too many dogs growing up, but I've always grown up around dogs. And in the last maybe 10, 12 years, I've been quite actively involved in doggy care in our community. And I know a lot of people who work in this space as well. There is something about children being exposed to animals at a younger age, and not just that exposure like let's do a day trip and go to a farm. It's okay to do that, but on a sustained basis, to even understand what does it mean to care for beings which can't speak. What kind of difficulties did they go through? I feel like it builds so much compassion in them. Um, so it's something that I would like to work on again from a community perspective. So there are a lot of loose ideas right now, but that is what I want. From a professional perspective, I already mentioned that I used to anchor the public engagement from the library at where I used to work. So public libraries and archives is a very big interest area, and it's Bangalore has a fantastic reading culture. There's so many bookstores. There's phenomenal number of public libraries also, but people don't really know about it. And given the traffic these days, nobody even heads out to buy books in person. Everything's available on Amazon, on Kindle, and all that. So, but there's something about these kind of public spaces which become community spaces. So that is something that I'm working on with a couple of people that I know who are also interested in the same space. So yeah, that's going to be coming up hopefully over the next few months or maybe few years.
Yeah, mental health is hugely problematic, and I do hope that you can bring sports and perhaps animals in a therapeutic manner, perhaps, and marry those two together because it'll be huge, not just for young people, but even perhaps for older people who are going through stuff, and because mental health
Yeah.
is not spoken about unless it's in hush hush tones in very strange ways. Um,
Yeah.
Moving on, in most problematic situations, would you make your decisions and find solutions based on black, white, or gray areas?
My God, this is a bomb that you're throwing at me. Uh, I think black and white is what I would maybe refer to as facts, data, evidence, that sort of a thing. But life happens in gray, I don't believe that life happens in black and white. So I think that facts and evidence have to be the basis for a lot of what we do. But I don't think you can reach an answer simply with facts and evidence because emotions, experience, I don't know, all of those things come into the gray area. So I think gray is important. But I don't know, now just thinking back on what's happened in our school over the last few months, I feel, having been part of the whole thing right from the beginning, I feel that maybe we should have taken a little more time to look at the black and white. Maybe we went too much with the gray. So I think that it requires a bit of balance, but I would certainly not ignore the grays. I think the grays are very important for me because for me, all of life's experiences sit in that gray. The black and white help to maybe clarify that shade of gray. I don't know if that is too much of a metaphor, but yeah.
That was a very good answer. Really good answer. Have you done any voluntary work? And what was your reason for volunteering?
I mean, I think the most I'm engaged with is really the doggy care in our community. Um, we used to live in an apartment building, gated community, and you know how these are. No street dogs come in, nothing. Nobody even knows what happens to the dogs just outside the colony. But once we moved to where we currently live, we realized that there are so many dogs, and this colony particularly has a lot of. Actually, we have a very good community that takes care of dogs. One of my friends, she knows which dog needs to be spayed when, who needs to be vaccinated, which one is sick, which one needs meds at what time of day. Like she's like a database. It's pretty amazing. So for me, it was just an to street doggy rescue, care, rehoming, adopt. We ourselves have two indie dogs at home. One whom we adopted about 7 years ago. She had been beaten and tied up somewhere, and somebody reached out to us, and we just took her in. And the other one, someone dumped her outside our house during the lockdown. So it's just been of interest. I don't have a whole lot of time to do all the things that a lot of the people do, which is go around feeding and meds and all of that. But I take care of their accounts, which is such a headache because people give whatever they can give, right? So starting from the 100 rupees that someone gives to $1,000 a month, or people give like at random schedules. So I have to sort of manage all of that. That's sort of my contribution right now. But like I said, I am planning to get into this with a little bit more seriousness, the connection between dogs and mental health. So yeah, I think that's what I do, and I do it because I enjoy it. It's not for any. There's no like gain or whatever. It's not for any cause like that, but it just gives me a sense of satisfaction, and I feel like it's something that the kids also relate to. The children know all the dogs in this area, and they go and volunteer whenever they have time. So I feel it's a good thing for us to do.
Uh, when you see cruelty to animals on the one hand, which is unfortunately quite rampant, and then you see extreme kindness, it's an odd contrast for us to live with. So that's really heartwarming. Are there any
It is. I mean, and when you work in things like this, you see both of those. You see like both ends of the spectrum, which is actually shocking. And that's why I said, this idea of involving children in this sort of not, I don't even want to call it work, but just to expose them to things like this on a regular basis will allow us to build levels of compassion, which I don't think we know what's possible really. So it's a very hopeful space that I speak from.
perhaps kind of extending that back into BIS, which a lot of American schools, a lot of British schools used to do actually a long time ago, where you can have pets in class and little pets. It
Yeah.
could be tortoises, it could be anything. So perhaps that's something
Correct.
that you could look at when you get into the board to build that level of compassion within the school.
That
Yeah.
would be awesome. I mean, the New York Public Library does a program called Reading to Rover, and they do this for children with reading difficulties, learning difficulties, because other kids may laugh at you, let's say, if you pronounce something badly or you're stuttering or anything like that. But dogs, they won't do that. They'll just come sit next to you, put their heads on your lap, and, the child is so happy to read to the dog. So there are plenty of things that we can do, but I do realize that it's not all very easy. But I would like to give my effort to make something like that possible, because I feel like that builds the resilience of communities. It's not just personal resilience that comes from having access to money and to sports and things like that.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I hope you get to actually give that a whirl at VIS. Um,
Thank you.
are there any hobbies or interests that you're passionate about? I should say at this point, maybe apart from tennis.
Yeah, reading, writing, sketching, and I train 3, 4 days a week. I've been doing strength training for a while, and I can't imagine my life honestly without it. I feel like it's just made me a better person overall, physically, mentally, all of that. I don't really have any other. I mean, I like to cook also. I don't like to cook on a daily basis, but I do like to experiment. Sadly, for my family, I do a lot of experimenting on them. But yeah, those are my hobbies.
And finally, our last question. Our last question. Sorry about that. Um, what do you like to do? What do you like to do for fun?
Oh, fun. My God. I'm not so sure that I can answer this question on this forum, Bindu.
The more decent parts of it.
I'm just kidding. For fun, I don't know, man. I like to hang out with people. I really love, I'm a very, very people oriented person. I love to hang out. Um, I have friends from really like long time ago. I had the good fortune of growing up in one city, right from school through college. So I've got like loads of friends in Madras. Similarly, I have pockets of friends from work and the different places that I've lived in and all that in Bangalore. So I really like to hang out with people, catch up. I like to play with the dogs. I play cricket in the driveway with the kids. Yeah, I just like to hang out with people, I think, for fun, other than all these other things that I do.
Um, I don't know where you find all the time to do all the various things that you're doing because it boggles me.
I wake up at 4:30 every day. I'm a very, very morning person. So I make like those pockets of time are very important. So yeah, but it is a bit of a tight schedule.
I would think so. I mean, I can't really figure out how you're going to fit in even half of what you've been talking about. So that was our last question, Rekha. Thank you so much for spending time with us. All the very best, and I hope the people who watch this video of yours will get to know you a little bit more and think hard when they get to the polling booth. So all the very best, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you all so much for doing this. It's really not an easy job being a moderator, being an admin, and things like that. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the elections. Hopefully, they'll happen on June 3rd. So, vote for me. Thank you. Yeah.